Yo, what's going on guys? Cultimush back at it with another video. About 6 months ago, I brought you guys my MSI GeForce GTX 950 performance review. Well, now as some time has passed and some more games have been released, I thought let's take a look at this video card again, but this time testing some of the newest games. I will leave a link to the last video in the description box down below. Check how this GPU does on some of the older games like Witcher 3 and Metal Gear Solid 5. Feel free to check that out. Also, I just want to mention when I was testing these games out for this video, I prioritized graphical quality over frame rate. So unless the game was completely unplayable, meaning it was dipping to like 20 frames per second, I tried maxing out as many games I could. Some I had to lower a bit because they were completely unplayable at higher settings. So with that being said, let's get right into this with the first game being Fallout 4. You guys can see the performance on the top left corner of the screen. Now I am playing this game on the Ultra preset and the frame rate usually hovers around 35 to 45 frames per second. When there's a lot of stuff going on, sometimes it'll dip to around 28 to 29 frames per second, but for the most part, it's very playable. I actually did play Fallout 4 on the PlayStation 4, and on the console version, the game was dipping to like 20 frames per second, sometimes even lower than that, so the GTX 950 is going to give you a much better experience than what you were getting on a console. Alright, moving on to a game that I know a lot of you guys don't care about, but I thought I would test it anyway, Star Wars Battlefront. This game is also running on its Ultra preset at 1080p. And the frame rate is pretty good. It hovers at around 42 to 50 frames per second. But I should mention that this is a game that on consoles does run at a consistent 60 FPS. The reason for that is on console, this game looks like poop. But yeah, if you do want a more consistent 60 FPS as people tend to do with first-person shooters, maybe think about dropping the settings down to high. But if you want all that graphical goodness, know that at Ultra settings, this game is still perfectly playable. I was doing a fine job playing the game on the GTX 950. I didn't get any ridiculous frame rate dips. Alright, next up we got Rise of the Tomb Raider. This game is running on a variety of different settings that you can see here. It's not maxed out, but it's pretty close to it. Things like pure hair are obviously turned off. Texture quality is set to high because with a 2GB video card, you have to set it to high. But overall, the game looks really freaking good with these settings. And for a $150 GPU, it performs okay. You're going to be getting around 30 to 35 frames per second. Sometimes the game will dip to around 27 to 28 frames per second. I still thought this was reasonably playable because this is a game that a lot of people also do play with a controller, so frame rate isn't as big of an issue, but obviously a lot of you guys do want a higher frame rate than this, so you will have to lower the settings a bit. I haven't played Rise of the Tomb Raider personally on the Xbox One, but I have heard that version does have frame rate dips. And realistically, with a GTX 950, you probably shouldn't be playing at settings like this if you do want a more consistent frame rate. But it is possible on a $150 GPU to play this game at really good settings, make the game look really freaking good, and still get a somewhat playable frame rate. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that. A game dipping to 28 frames isn't playable, but to some it is, and that's the beauty of PC gaming. You can lower the settings if you want more frames. Alright, next up we got Far Cry Primal, which is a Ubisoft game, but this is a decently ported Ubisoft game. I wasn't able to play this game completely maxed out, was just getting way too many frame rate dips. So instead of the Ultra preset, I decided to use the very high preset, and with that, I was getting about 32 to 37 frames per second, which is pretty playable. Again, that is something some of you guys might disagree, but I found the game pretty playable. It looks really good. Far Cry Primal is a beautiful game. And the fact that a video card like the GTX 950 can still play it at very high and get playable settings, that's an accomplishment in its own right. Alright, finally we got XCom 2, which is probably one of the weirdest performing games of 2016. It's a PC exclusive, and while the game does look really good, don't get me wrong, the particle effects in this game are really great. I had to lower the settings down to medium to get a playable frame rate. At high, I was dipping down to like 16 frames per second. That just ain't gonna fly. But on medium settings, the frame rate jotted up all the way up to 42 to 45 frames per second, which is definitely very playable. But this is one of the weird games of the year. A lot of people have reported issues with XCOM 2, so your mileage may vary with this game. It was actually a lot worse on launch, but it seems like over the last month they fixed a lot of things. It's still not a perfect game, but at medium settings, the GTX 950 does do a pretty good job. So that's gonna wrap up this video, guys. If I missed a game, if I forgot to benchmark a game, let me know in the comment section down below. I think these are the 5 key games that have released since September, but if I did miss a game, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you have a request for a future video, also leave that in the comment section down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.